Everybody, I think you can see me now. Tutu's having a couple of tech issues, so I will just wait for her to join us. Perhaps you could just let me know in the comments if you can see, hear me. It would also be interesting to know where everyone's from, actually. I can see the comments, but I can't see the names of the people entering them. But yeah, it'd be great to learn where you're all from while we wait, and then hopefully we'll get started in a second. Hello, just coming back on, for those that have just joined. Tutu is having some tech issues, unfortunately. Just these things happen. So I'm just finding out where everyone is from at the moment. So hopefully you can hear me now. I know someone said you can't hear, but that's possibly because I wasn't speaking. Oh, I think Tutu's coming. But can I also find out what ages your children are? I know year 5 is obviously the most stressful time, I think, as we're going up to the 11 plus, but just wondering if there are some with children of different ages in here today as well. Okay, Brentwood, Birmingham, Reading, lovely. I'm in Kent, and so is Tutu, actually. I'm in the Bromley area of Kent, and then she's a little closer to the coast, but I'll let her tell you. Oh, here she is. Tutu, you're not live streamed at the moment, but can you just give me a thumbs up? Let me know that you're ready to be in. Okay, I shall get you in as well. Okay. Right, I think we're all here. Hey, Tutu.
Hi, sorry about that.
I was just finding out where people are from. So year 5, yeah. Devon. Whereabouts in Kent are you from, Tutu?
Sittingbourne.
Oh, I can't hear you. Don't know if anyone else can.
Not muted. Can you hear me now?
Dartford, year 5, cool. Sorry, yeah. So I'm sure we have quite a few stressed, frazzled parents with us at the moment. I'll hopefully be able to help with some of that tonight, give you some tips that you can use at home. You can hear both of us. Okay.
Can you hear?
Well, I'm going to need to be able to hear Tutu at some point as well. Let me play around with this and hide mine for a second and just see how I can get this going. Okay. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Just wanted to make sure I can get this going properly. Tutu, would you mind speaking for me again just to see if it happens to be working now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can't hear a thing. Okay, I'm going to get started. I'll introduce myself, and hopefully while you're introducing yourself, then I can try and figure out how I can hear you as well as everybody else. So thank you for bearing with us, and sorry parents for the delays. Still getting used to all this stuff at this point in lockdown. So we will be going, as you can see, through how to manage 11 plus stress. We've got a few tips that hopefully you can use at home, and I think it would be nice for us to get the different perspectives from Tutu and I, who both run tutoring centres, tutoring companies, and how we work with our students and what our experiences have been over the last few years of helping them. Just a bit about me. So I am the founder of Kin Learning and Wordier. Kin Learning is an all-ages tuition centre in Bromley and online. We generally specialise in the Bexley, Kent, Newstead, ILADS 11 plus exams. We do other areas. And then Wordier is a range of vocabulary resources, including classes, books, games, flashcards, all to help with that 11 plus preparation. I went to Newstead Wood Grammar School in Orpington, so I've not only been through the 11 plus, but have tutored for children for many years now, 8 years of 11 plus tuition and nearly 15 years of general tuition. And I went to the LSE, London School of Economics, and graduated with first class honours from there several years ago now. Tutu, would you like to tell us a bit about you, please?
Okay, so can I just confirm that people can hear me? Can you just confirm in the chat that people can definitely hear me? Because Kamilah can't hear me. Can you hear me, guys? I don't know what's happened. Oh, you can hear me, okay. But Kamilah's disappeared. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Tutu. I am the principal at Technis Academy. We are a tutoring school that provides tuition for children of all ages, right from age 4 all the way to age 13. We support students in preparing for their 11 plus, their SAT exams, their GCSEs, their A levels, and we specialize in different subjects, so maths, English, sciences, and French up to A level. So that's what we do. I'm based in Kent. I live in Sittingbourne, and I'm a mom of one. And I've been a qualified teacher for the last 12 years. I worked in a school for the last 11 years, but now I do just Technis Academy because, as you will agree, it's hard to try and combine mainstream teaching with tutoring on a full scale like we are doing at the moment. And it's been a great pleasure being invited to come and talk today and to rub minds together with a great mind like Kamilah, who is also doing something very similar as I am. All right, glad to see you all. I hope to take a lot from this session as well as give you what I know as well, but every session I'm looking forward to gaining something from it as well as sharing my own views. So thank you. Oh, there you are, Kamilah.
Okay, sorry Tutu, I'm watching you on my phone because
Okay.
I still can't figure out how to hear you on the computer, but we shall proceed and wish us luck, guys. We'll be going over a few, 3 different main sections today. So as you'll have seen from the description, we're talking about setting priorities. So from my experience of studying, especially that I've taken in tutoring, is making sure that you're focusing on the right areas, the areas that are going to get you marks, and you're really utilising your time wisely. So we'll be talking about how you can best do that, how to motivate your child, and also just how to study effectively, how to structure your child's study time in order to minimise that stress. So just a bit about our goals here. which I try to remind myself and the parents I work with of fairly often. So want a happy child. Of course, they're not going to be having the most fun through all of their 11 plus tuition, but generally we want to going through these tips to make sure that they are happy overall, and that we're setting them up to thrive at secondary school. I think it's really easy to get caught up in just 11 plus prep and getting through that exam, but really we want to have long-term skills so that they are going to the best secondary school for them and they can do incredibly well once they're there. And instilling a love of learning. I'm sure you're big in this as well, Tutu, and just making sure that this is a positive experience and that children like learning. I think there's nothing wrong with encouraging them to love learning new things, and that makes study a lot easier. And then also developing positive study habits, which will help them at secondary school and at university and long beyond. Okay, so on setting priorities, the basics that we've got here are, first up, check the admissions criteria and the travel time. Tutu, are the schools around you very strict on catchment areas, or are there quite a few children that come from outside of those areas?
I think most schools have the mile radius as part of their admissions criteria. However, there are a few schools around which they're not particularly, keen to with just the kids leaving around the area. They're more about high performing kids rather than kids who live in the area. So yes, there are a few schools. Few of them will probably be RGS, Rochester Grammar for Girls, in Rochester. They tend to look for high performing children. Dartford Grammar as well for boys, definitely. Um, and those are the kind of schools where they're looking for high performing kids. But majority of the grammar schools here would still consider where you live as part of their admissions criteria.
I think there's a delay on my sound, but I can
That's
see you
fine,
finish
I
talking.
understand. Yeah.
Yes. So some of the grammar schools will have spaces for those outside of the catchment area. As you say, some of them are for really high performers. And so look at whether, this kind of ties into the second one, on whether this is a realistic goal for your child. So if the school has 10 out of 130 spaces or something for high performers and it's all or nothing, really look now at what is realistic for you, what options you have, and prioritize accordingly. So if there is a school where if you are in the top 3% or something, like for Bexley, if there's a school like that where you could get a place, but there's an outside chance, then maybe you want to focus on some of the other school exams that are closer to you, that have broader admissions criteria and that sort of thing. And then also on travel time, consider whether this is actually somewhere that you'd want your child to go if they were to get in. I think sometimes the children will pass a test and you do all that work for it and then realise that actually you don't want your child travelling an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. So just have a look at those now, even if you've already had a look, just double check, nothing's changed, and really consider like where's your child got the best chance of passing the exam, and then you can focus your efforts on that. And I've mentioned, is the school a realistic goal for your child? Some of them, like OLADs in Kent, are incredibly selective. I know a lot of the London private schools are. And it sounds like an exaggeration, but a lot of the children that go there really are geniuses. They're in the top rankings for their GCSEs when they're in year 11. They're some of the best grades in the country. So just have an honest talk with yourself, with your partner, about whether this is going to be a realistic goal for your child, and adapt accordingly now rather than pushing the whole family through something that perhaps wasn't the right choice. I'm just reading the comment here. So we applied for the Kent school. Perhaps Tutu, if once I've gone through this slide, if you could answer that question in chat, then that would be handy. Just because of the sound issues.
Okay.
Someone's asked about the admissions process for Kent.
Okay.
I was going to say as well, creating a contingency plan. So often you don't want to think about going to the comprehensive schools or something, you want to focus on your goal, but I think it can reduce your stress if you've had a good look at some of those other options, comprehensives or a private or something, and you know what your backup plan would be should it come to that. That really takes the pressure off, can make you feel a little bit lighter knowing that getting into this one school isn't the be all and end all. And then setting priorities amidst your actual work. So review the score breakdown. By that I mean of the actual exam. So is it 25% English, 25% non-verbal, something like that. Some of them, like Kent, have a minimum mark that the children need to achieve in order to pass the exam. So that's a minimum mark by subject. So they can't necessarily compensate for a poor performance in one subject by doing well in another. So they need to be fairly evenly talented in that exam. So check what the score breakdown is and look for opportunities for easy marks for your child. So if there isn't that minimum mark, if all sections are treated equally, let's say you've only got a couple of months, they're struggling with comprehension, but they're really good at reasoning, then you might want to improve that comprehension, do as much as you can, but make sure that they're really excellent in reasoning so that they can balance out the marks in that way. So get familiar with the content of that exam and decide which areas you should focus on. For something like Bexley, which is a CEM exam, the verbal reasoning section contains comprehension, synonyms, antonyms, closed tests, and shuffle sentences. So for some of my pupils, I've got one pupil that's very, very good at remembering vocab. His comprehension isn't so strong. So I would say, as it's all lumped into one, we focus more on the vocab, and then that can help him to compensate for comprehension. So you can look at things like that. And then don't get too bogged down in their weaknesses. By this, I can mean you can spend a disproportionate amount of time on an area of weakness. Cubes and nets is one example. Tutu, I don't know if your pupils are the same, but notoriously my pupils find them really, really hard, cubes and nets questions. Yeah. So because you know that they struggle with that, parents can spend like hours and hours trying to make sure they're good with those questions. But sometimes the children just can't see it, they can't get it. So do what you can there, but remember, keep it in perspective. So cubes and nets, if it is in that exam, it's possibly going to be 5 marks out of 50 or something. And so you need to think, are you better off spending 10 hours trying to force the cubes and nets subject, or should you perhaps spend that time on other areas of nonverbal reasoning where your child is more likely to make faster gains? So that's what I mean by setting priorities. Tutu, are you able to answer the question in there?
Yeah. Okay. So someone was asking about what the admission process is to get into Kent schools. Okay, so you've already applied for you've already registered, which I can see from your text, from your comment. So your child will most likely write the exam around the September time. And then you're asking about when do you get to choose schools. So the council, your local council, would most likely write you around the October or end of September time and would give you the opportunity to select 4 to 5 schools, depending on the local authority, to select the schools you want your child to go to. And then you can place those schools in order of where you want your child to go. So I believe all of this is done online, and you'll be able to do that via the local authorities website, and they would be sending you an email or a letter. They'll be getting in touch with you basically for you to pick the schools. Now, my advice is this. So if I tend to advise parents this, by the time your child's result comes out, the 11 plus exam, it'll probably come out around the October time. There will probably only be about a week left for you to fill in the schools you want your child to go to. Don't rush it. Wait. until the result comes out. If your child passes the 11 plus exam, then you can make sure that the schools that you select are grammar schools on the list. And in terms of if you're trying to select schools across different local authorities, you don't have to do an application for each local authority. You only have to do one application for your local authority. But say you live in Kent, but then you want a Bexley school. Yes, Bexley school can be on your list. And then it'll be down to the Kent Council to get in touch with Bexley Council to say, by the way, one of our residents picked a school in your local authority. So it would just be one application that you do. So basically wait for the result to come out. And if your child passes the 11 plus, then, and if you really want your child to go to a grammar school, then it's best that you put grammar schools on your list, obviously realistic grammar schools that your child can get to. So Kamilah mentioned about travel time. I think travel time is really key. You don't want your child traveling more than 45 minutes, tops an hour to get to school, because if it takes them like an hour to get to school, them coming back, that's 2 hours a day. If you times that by 5, that's 10 hours on traveling in a week. And what tends to happen is some of these children, if they live too far away from school, they wouldn't then be able to participate in some extracurricular activities because they have to get a bus, because maybe where they live is really far and there's only one bus going out and they have to catch the bus, or they might stay for the extracurricular activities, but by the time they get home, they're really tired. So it's really important that you don't go too far away, whatever schools you pick for your child. But back to what I was saying, if you know you want your child to go to grammar schools, only put realistic grammar schools on the list. I had a parent recently whose child passed 11 plus, but they put grammar schools on the list as well as a couple of comprehensive schools on the list. So, and this child passed 11 plus really well, all right? But then they placed the child in a comprehensive school, and they placed the child in not so good comprehensive school as well. It wasn't even on their list. So, but what they were saying to the council was, yes, we know our child passed 11 plus, but we don't mind our child going to a comprehensive school. So the local council put their child in a comprehensive school. They appealed and they were able to get their son into the grammar school of their choice, but it was just a long-winded process that could have been prevented. I hope I've answered your question. Wait for the council to get in touch with you around September, October time, and you'll be able to choose the schools in the order, in the priority that you want your child to go to. All right, Kamilah.
Thanks, Tutu. Sorry, someone had asked about Surrey. My sound is also jumping when I hear you. If you've just joined us, unfortunately, whilst I understand that you guys can hear Tutu well, which is great, I can't hear her at all on this. So I'm trying to listen in on her phone and it's a bit tricky. So just in case, sorry if I'm going over something that you've already said. I see that someone had asked about grammar schools in Surrey. Off the top of my head, my Surrey knowledge is not great. But I was going to say, this group, 11 Plus Journey, there are, I'm sure, loads of people that have been through the exam before and have an encyclopedic knowledge of it. So if you have any specific questions, then I would encourage you to post them in the group after this session, and I'm sure someone will be able to answer them. Okay, on to motivation. So, make your child feel like a winner is the first one that I have up. And I will come on to bribery in a minute, but making them feel like a winner, it doesn't have to be a big thing. That you don't need to have prizes and this whole structure at home, but just give them something that they can do. I always think, if you think back to whatever subjects that you didn't like at school, I think they're usually the subjects where you didn't feel like you were very good at them. And so if we're trying to reduce stress, increase enjoyment here, then the child will need to be doing something where they feel like it's achievable, and they can do it, and they're good at it. So I like in my classes to try and start and end with something that's fairly achievable or fairly easy. So you can do that by doing a little bit of revision at the beginning, just to ease your child into their study period at home. So 5-10 minutes of something that they've done before, but maybe haven't done for a while. It's still valuable time because you need to check that they haven't forgotten those things. But also it gets them off to a nice start, feeling confident. And then you can end the session like that as well if they've been sitting down at home. So start and end on a high, and that definitely makes it easier to get them to sit down the next time. Encourage them to compete against themselves. So especially with, I have a book on verbal reasoning where it's broken down to very short sections, and we recommend 30 seconds per question. So there's like a scoreboard within that where the children can write down like how long they took on each of those sections, and they do just naturally improve over time. So having some kind of record where they can compare their performance over time is really nice, and just verbally acknowledging the improvement that they've made, the effort that they've put in, will make a huge difference to them. You've probably seen this at home, but when sometimes in class we'll say to a child, like, you're doing really well with this, you're very good at this topic, you literally see them sit up straighter and like hold their head higher. So your bits of praise at home will really mean something to your child, and I think sometimes you have to make a mental note to actually praise them and congratulate them, because it's easy to get caught up in everything else. Bribery, so is it good or bad? I do have my own strong opinions on this, but I did wonder what parents' experiences were here, and Tutu, what your experiences are. I'll let you go first and listen in on the phone, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, so I'm guessing, Kamilah, you're asking my opinion on bribery. I don't know. But I reward good effort rather than high marks. So if I feel a child has put in good effort, I reward them rather than results. Yeah, reward effort than results. If you know the child has put their absolute best in, they've tried, they've worked hard, let them understand that their best, their own best, will be enough. So this is why I say to my students, this is why I say to my own child, your best will be enough. So reward hard work, reward effort rather than results.
Sorry, watching it on delay again. Yeah, so I definitely think rewarding the hard work and that emphasis on that is really important, especially when, because sometimes we give children work that actually isn't at the right level for them. Sometimes by accident, you might think, okay, this is the natural step, and then you realize that you've made a mistake. So rewarding, putting in that effort, having a great attitude, I think is really important. My opinions on bribery, I try and base things on research as much as I can. I know that there is a fair bit of research that says that bribery is a bad idea in the long term, because when your child is at secondary school, at university on their own, you want them to motivate themselves and have that sense of discipline, because they're going to need that in life. But when you give them a bribe, you reduce the need for any sort of sense of self-motivation. So I think unexpected rewards are lovely. If you want to have something physical to show that your child's done a good job, then saying to them, okay, well, we're going to do this weekend or something, because you've been working so hard, rather than saying, if you work hard, if you're good, then you will get this, because we're trying to develop good habits in the long term. If you have any personal opinions on bribery, I'd be very interested to hear them in the chat, or if you feel like it's worked for you at home, or if you're having trouble with it at all, then I'd be interested to know. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading comments there. We'll come back to that. So give your child choices. This is another research-based approach that I have, where there's a lot of research to say that when you feel in control of things in life, then you're happier, which makes sense. I think we've all had times as adults where we feel like everything's happening to us and we can't control anything. But that makes sense for children as well. So just giving your child some sense of control over their work will reduce their stress and then reduce their resistance to work. One small way that you can do it is just when you sit down to work, ask them which book they would like to start with. I try and do that every time I start with the kids, and this is something we really need to do. So just getting their opinion there. Also, I know someone had mentioned in the group the other day about just not having the time to sit and oversee their child working, and because they didn't have the motivation to do that themselves. So perhaps speaking to your child at the beginning of the week and explaining that, hey, you're not going to be around at these times or something. What would they like you to do? How would they like you to help them? That just gives them more motivation to do the work because they feel like it was their decision in the first place. And then give a reason for your decisions. I think I may have read about this in How to Lose Friends and How to Win Friends and Influence People. But it's using the word because. So people are far more likely to agree with a request if you use the word because. So even it doesn't have to be followed by anything, even a good reason. But saying like, I need you to sit. Can you sit down now, please? Because we are having dinner later, and so we need to get this done now. So try and just throw because in there. Give a reason for your decision. So as well as being more persuasive, it does just help your child to understand like why they're doing this, and also to like motivate themselves that little bit more. Are there any questions that anyone has on motivation? Anything you're finding tricky in your households that you'd like some advice on? What do you think? We'll wait a few more seconds just in case. I think there's a delay on this actually, so we'll give you a bit more time. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. I will come back to any questions or anything in chat just in case. Okay, then we have our last slide on studying effectively. Can I just check that you can hear me? My screen has frozen on this end. Very bad frame. Okay, so someone said bribery works. Bribery works if you need to get a child to do something as a one-off. Yes, it does. So it's probably the quickest way of getting a child to do something as a one-off. But yeah, as a long-term structure, it's definitely not something to become reliant on. I remember at school, a girl in my year was, her parents were paying her very handsomely for her GCSE grade. So it was something like £20 for a C and £40 for a B or something like that. But she didn't get better grades than anybody else on from our class. I think hers were some of the worst grades. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily work. I've switched off my camera, by the way, because all I could see was a freeze frame of myself, but I'll try again in a second. Okay, so studying effectively. Varying subjects and topics. This is really key to how we manage to get our students to concentrate when they're at the summer school that we do. So they're there for 3.5 hours or so, and we very much want them to be working at full force throughout that time. And the key to that really is varying the subjects that we do. So we'll spend usually no more than about 40 minutes on a subject, and that's around in line with how long people can concentrate for. But if you mix that up with different kinds of tasks within a subject as well, then that can help children to concentrate for longer. So vary the topics, vary the subjects that they're doing. You can work in short stints as well, so vary the length of time that they do on something, and again, give them that choice, and give them a chance to take a break. I'll come back to that in a second. Reevaluate your own teaching. Now, I may not be getting any popularity points for this, but sometimes we start explaining something to a child and we keep, sorry, I'm just painting the screen. So perhaps they don't get what we're saying at first, and then often we'll try and explain it the same way again. We'll just repeat the same words in the hopes that the child will get it. And I think especially if you are an expert in that subject, if you've got a maths degree or something like that, then part of you thinks, well, like, why isn't my child getting this? Like, I've explained it 5 times, like, they should understand. And sometimes it's just the explanation was too high level for them, or maybe they just don't get it. It just isn't their thing, the way that you've explained it. And so if you are reaching a bit of a brick wall there, then try and take a step back and think, okay, perhaps it could be the way that I'm explaining it. Am I explaining it in the simplest, most child-friendly way? If you are getting to the point where, yep, you've decided it's you're not explaining it in the best way, then turn to YouTube. There should be lots of videos on there from different teachers, different styles, and you can perhaps Google a topic and find an explanation on there. Sometimes this doesn't work as well for 11 plus as it does for GCSE, but sometimes you can actually Google the question itself, and then Google will come up with some pages that have an explanation of that style of question. So it may be that it's just a simpler way. There's a simpler way of explaining it that hasn't occurred to you at home, which is fair enough. We've all got different ways of doing things. High intensity study workouts. So this is really good for working on speed, and I've also found it good for getting children to do a topic that they don't like. So we will set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes, or sometimes it's a random number like 3 minutes. Do set the timer on your phone, because the kids really respond to that. It just makes them give themselves a push. So yeah, give them a time, set the timer, give them a certain number of questions to do, to power through, and then you can go over them later, go over them the next day or something. But that's a good way to just get through some stuff. Taking a targeted approach to your child's weaknesses. So one of the least effective ways of improving is just doing paper after paper after paper, and not taking the time to go through the weaknesses and really make sure that your child understands it. If they didn't understand the question the first time they did it, they probably aren't going to improve in the next paper, and it's going to be really demoralizing for them and for you, because you just think, why haven't they got me? Why aren't they getting anywhere with this? So once your child's done a paper, schedule specific time to go through those weaknesses, get sheets if you can on a topic, get more questions that are similar. If you can't find sheets on a question, one trick that we use is just changing the numbers in the question and the names in the question. So it doesn't take long, just literally can cross them out, write something over the top, and then get your child to do that question. And if you can leave it maybe a couple of days or a week, then it would be good to come back to that question again with different numbers and like names in it, so that it will probably seem like a fresh question to your child. Get them to do it a few days later and make sure that they remember how to do that question. So before you go on to the next paper, every time you need to make sure that you have gone through the weaknesses from the paper before and that your child gets it. And then finally, just making sure I haven't missed out any points, encourage your child to assess if and when they should be studying. I think when parents think about asking their child whether they want to study right now, they think the children are just going to say no, like I shouldn't study right now, and they won't necessarily. So sometimes I'll say to a student, like, okay, I think perhaps your brain is worn out or something. Shall we do something else and then come back to this another day, or something like that. Sometimes they want to power on, like they've got to be in their bonnet and they want to get that question figured out today, but giving them that option to move on, it's another skill where they can think when they're an adult, okay, like, is this the best time for me to be working? Is this the best environment for me to be working in? But it goes back to giving them that sense of control over their work. And it just makes the most of your study time. Like there's no point in sitting there for 2 hours if your child checked out in the second minute. Just sometimes best to call it a day, let them relax, give up for now and then come back to it at a time when they're fresh, you're fresh, and everyone's in a better mood. And that's it, I think, my key points. Does anyone have any questions about this slide, previous slides? Do feel free to give us specific scenarios that you're experiencing at home, because I'm sure there are other parents that are experiencing the same thing. And Tutu, is there anything that you wanted to add to that at all?
So in terms of various subjects and topics that you mentioned, I think it's really also important that parents know what percentage each one of these subjects carry for your local authority exam or independent school exam. So I'll give you an example. Medway test, for Medway test, 40% of the whole test goes to creative writing. So if a child is not writing well, then they're going to definitely struggle in that exam. So making sure you know sort of what subjects have, higher proportion than the other, and it just helps in terms of where to put your focus. Not necessarily just focus on just creative writing, because it carries 40% of the whole thing, but obviously it would help you prioritize the child's work. And then you talked about I think it wasn't on this slide. You mentioned on the other one about giving them choices. Also, I think it's good to um give them a plan so they know they have a routine when they do their work, something structured. And it does go a long way as a parent when you sit with your child. You might not even be doing anything, you might not be helping them with any question at that point, but just sitting with them whilst they study to show that you do. Of course they know you care, but to encourage them to know that you're here. Oh, okay. I'm back now. Back in this. Okay. In stream. Am I live? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, guys? I'm just going to check the comments here. Okay, so Saba, you can see me. That's good. Okay. So sorry, guys. Some technical issues. The software kicked us out, but I'm back now, and Kamilah should be joining us soon. So I think the last thing I was saying before it got cut off is what was I saying? Is to plan ahead and have a structure in place for your child's revision. Definitely. Yeah, so that was what I was gonna add. So basically, all I'm gonna say is make sure your child's mental health is in a good place.
That was what I was gonna add.
Make sure you check on their mental health. Make sure they're okay. Camilla mentioned earlier about happy child. That's really important. And she also touched base on giving reasons. I believe in the fact that your child should know exactly the reason why they've taken on this 11 plus journey in the first place. They should be in it with you, right? They should be in it with you. They should understand why they're doing it. And it shouldn't just be a matter of the parents saying, right, you're doing it and you're doing it. Some of them don't even understand why they're doing it. So is if you can in a very early stage get them to understand why they're taking that journey and get them involved in it, get them actually, it's like it's like selling a product. You want them to like the product, to understand why if they were to purchase the product, it would add some value into their life. It's the same way you have to get them involved in it, where they're at a point going, this is why I'm doing 11 plus and this is what I'm doing it for. And then whatever school you guys are thinking of them going to, they have to be involved in the selection process as well. It's not a matter of you picking schools for them. And I'm hoping
You
that
guys are thinking of them going to.
you would be able to do some open evenings as well. I don't know if I'm still here. I don't know if you can still hear me, guys. Open evenings, maybe. I know with COVID restrictions, that's been limited. Some schools are not doing that at the moment, but there might be virtual ones that your child can go to, or there might be other older children who are already going to that school that your child might, it'll be really good if your child speak to them. Yeah. So in all, make sure your child is involved in this, and also have yes. So someone said it gives disciplines and makes one productive and gives a reason to enjoy the off times. Yes, definitely. So whatever the routine is, follow it. You know, there's no point setting up a routine, setting up a structure, and it doesn't get followed up. And then making sure that that child is happy, really. And Camilla and Richard talked about bribery not being an option. Um, you know, it's also, I see the 11 plus process even beyond just 11 plus. It's really getting your child to understand the value of hard work, you know, and then letting them know that of course you can be hardworking, and at the same time you can have fun and you can have a balanced life and you can still do all your extracurricular activities and you can still be happy. You know, all these things can go hand in hand. And one policy with me and my child is we work first before we play. So and that is like a little motto. So work first and then we know play comes after. So it's also more beyond that. It's really instilling in them that, you know, you need to put effort into something. You need to put effort into your work, and then hopefully you would get results that you're hoping for. But at the same time, if those results don't come up, and this is really important, this is where the mental health comes in. If you don't get the results you're hoping for, preparing them to know that even if you don't get it, you're still very much valued, you're still very much loved, you're not any less than your colleagues or mates. So these are the really key points that I wanted to talk on. I don't know if Kamilah is still here. Kamilah, are you still here? I know it's a little bit delayed on Camillah's end, so I'm just going to wait a little bit just to know if Kamilah is still there. Kamilah, you still
Hello, I've just come back in. Sorry, guys. I didn't want to press refresh while Tutu was talking in case I just ended the whole thing. So I've just been quietly listening. But yes, thank you very much, Tutu, for that. I did hear on the live stream. Okay, so we're back. I think I've pretty much covered the points that I needed to cover, actually, but didn't want to sign off without saying goodbye. So someone's asked about how to check the grammar school ratings in academics and non-academic categories. Now, I still don't think I can hear you, Tutu, but if you could confirm with a movement of the head. I am not sure they have much of, there's ranking of the like the less academic subject or the overall just culture of the school and that sort of thing. I believe for that kind of information, then you're better off speaking to past parents, looking at what areas the school emphasises in their prospectus, open day. Did you want to, sorry, jump in there, Tutu?
Yeah, the school league table is quite good to use to compare schools, and you can compare a lot of things. So using the school league table does help. You can compare, for primary school, you can compare the children hitting their reading age by a certain time. You can compare for secondary schools their GCSE results. You know, you can drag in a lot of things and put in and compare on the league table. What I'm going to do is I did a training on how to find the right school for your child, how to select the right secondary school for your child. So I can put the link in the comment section, or post, or do it as a post. And if anyone wanted to watch it, by all means, you're welcome.
Sorry, just unmuting there. Great,
That's
thank
fine.
you. And as someone said in the comments, I can't see who said it, but it's regardless of the results, the kids should be extremely proud of themselves for their effort, which I think is a great point to finish off on. That's the thing that we need to emphasise throughout, that just preparing for the 11 plus, it's never a waste of time. I know it can feel like it at points, especially if the results don't go the way that we want them to, but it's, if you go through it in a way that looks after your child's mental health and builds skills for the long term, then it's definitely not a waste of time and will set them up to thrive at whatever secondary school they go to. Okay, I think I will leave it there. Unless anyone has anything else, but I'll sign off, and thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your patience with the tech issues and everything. I hope this was helpful, and if you use any of the tips, then do feel free to come back to the comments and let us know. It'll be interesting to hear. Thanks everyone, bye.
Thanks, Kamilah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.